Hayward, but Jason Tatum is the player now, 5 years, close to $200 million, like Mitchell, with one more All-Star appearance. And you've already seen with Tatum, he is a player. He can be the best player on a championship team. And, you know, for this Celtic organization with such a history of great ones, he's one you imagine up in the rafters someday. It's not easy to get your number up there, but you imagine it up there. And he's now for them with Jaylen Brown and, you know, this, you know, young core they have. He's the centerpiece.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to Danny Ainge, not only just drafting Jason Tatum out of Duke, but realizing that he could be a cornerstone for this organization going forward. Woj is a great year. Also grabbing a max bag, Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz guard getting that same 5-year, $163 million extension. Again, that could balloon to $195 if he reaches All-NBA status. The 24-year-old averaged 24 points a game last season, and then he dropped 2 50-point games during Utah's 7-game series loss to Denver in this year's playoffs. So all total, you have 4 players from the 2017 draft class who have scored more than 3,000 points in their young NBA careers. And now 3 of them have agreed to rookie Supermax extensions with those same squads. The number 1 pick from that year, Markelle Fultz, well, he's no longer with the team that drafted him. Well, with us, though, is the aforementioned Adrian Wojnarowski. And, you know, what was I say to most NBA fans? They look at these deals, they felt like no-brainers for both the player and the squads. But let's start with Mitchell and the reason that he wanted to stay in Utah, and they were doing everything to keep him.
Yeah, there's a great relationship there with Donovan Mitchell, not just that organization, but that community. And he came to them at the draft, right before Gordon Hayward left in free agency. That was a wounded city. And immediately he gave them hope. And they realized very quickly they had a superstar and a player to build around. And now he comes back. You saw what he did in the bubble. And a player that really has blossomed, you've seen as a man. And you see him at the forefront of the social justice movement this summer in the league. And he's had a strong voice with that in that Salt Lake community. And you'll see a lot of that going forward. And he's just the kind of person that new ownership there, Ryan Smith, their front office, that they want to build around.
We often talk about players that are face of the franchise. He's definitely that there in Salt Lake City. All right, but let's go over to Boston. Jay.
Well, this is where the Lakers are right now, and it is rare for a championship team to kind of flip this whole roster. And first, we saw the move with Dennis Schroeder trading for Danny Green. He replaces Rajon Rondo. Wesley Matthews was signed for the biannual exception, replaces Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Oh, we can't get him in there. Montrezl Harrell replaces Dwight Howard. Nope, touchscreen's not working, but they're in there. Trust me, they're in there. And when you look at their resume, as far as what they have with that roster, 6 roster spots open. They've got bird rights on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They still have the veteran minimum exception, and they're $14 million below the luxury tax. They still have some work to do here, but as you could see, this roster has totally flipped. The Montrezl Harrell signing, Wesley Matthews, Dennis Schroeder in the trade, and you still have, of course, LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
He's not a free agent, but he is unhappy. What's next for James Harden? How about Vince Carter on the best fit for Harden? That's later on schedule. De'Aaron Fox is their point guard of the future, agreeing to sign him to a max extension for at least $163 million over 5 seasons. His richest contract in franchise history, surpassing Chris Webber. League's reigning 6th man of the year, Montrezl Harrell, agreed to a 2-year deal with the Lakers, worth $19 million with a player option in year 2. Harrell ranked 2nd in the NBA in scoring off the bench at just over 18 points per game. And Danilo Gallinari cashed in with the Hawks, agreeing to a 3-year, $61.5 million deal. He should help an Atlanta team that shot just 33% from the 3 last season. That was the worst in the NBA. Oh, look at old Dwight Howard. I'm staying right where I belong. Laker Nation, I love y'all. Purple and gold never gets old. That's how it started. That's what he said, but what did he mean? He shuffled off to Philadelphia before the day was done.
We got just the man we need to talk to, Adrian Wojnarowski, joining us now on SportsCenter. So, Adrian, let's start at the top with the Lakers. Even as they won a championship last year, there were lots of questions about the depth and what they do outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They got some answers. They added Dennis Schroeder and now Wesley Matthews and Montrezl Harrell. What's going on with L.A.?
Yeah, they certainly had to address that center position once Dwight Howard headed to Philadelphia to play for Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey. And Montrezl Harrell comes from the Clippers, where he was, a very productive player. But they get him at essentially the mid-level exception, the 2 years, $19.5 million with a player option on year 2. And the priority for the Clippers was keeping Marcus Morris, and they're going to do that with a 4-year, $64 million deal, I'm told.
So Anthony Davis, no need to worry in LA?
Yeah, Anthony Davis will be back with the Lakers. He's going to take some time to decide, I'm told, at least through Thanksgiving next week, about how he wants to structure his deal with LA. And, he certainly has several options in terms of the length. One option for him will be to get his contract lengthwise on par with LeBron James. That would be essentially a 3-year deal with a player option after the second year, and then he and LeBron would be contractually aligned. They obviously share the same agent, Rich Paul.
All right, so meanwhile in Boston, Gordon Hayward opted out of his contract with the Celtics, but he may not be leaving. What's going on?
He still has, Hayward does, several options. His agent, Mark Bartelstein, has been talking with several teams on sign and trade scenarios where the Celtics would get back some players from, or perhaps picks from a team, and it would allow Hayward to do a multi-year, $100 million type deal, which is, he would like to get a long-term deal here. New York is offering, a bigger number on shorter years. That is an option for him. The Pacers and the Celtics had gone back and forth and talked. Gordon Hayward is obviously from Indianapolis, played at Butler. That has certainly been a scenario for him. And another scenario that remains there, Stan, is returning to the Celtics. He could re-sign with Boston, and if Boston wanted to trade him in the future, if he wanted to move on, it's a lot easier to do that down the road with Gordon Hayward if he's under contract.
The Hawks add some shooting with Danilo Gallinari, 3 years, $61.5 million. What are they thinking when it comes to roster building?
Well, they have a very talented young core Travis Schlenk has built in Atlanta, led by Trae Young, certainly. But they're a team that wanted to start to compete to get into playoffs. And you don't do that with young players. You do it with accomplished veterans like Gallinari. 3 years, $61.5 million for Gallo. The most ever for a player over 30 who's never played in an all-star game. That's an interesting fact on that deal, but he is a guy who can score the ball all over the floor, and I don't think the Hawks are done. They have more cap space. There's some more veteran players out there that they would like to add. They want a team that's going to compete a little closer to that 8th seed in the Eastern Conference.
The Nets thinking even bigger than that in the Eastern Conference. They keep Joe Harris. General Manager Sean Marks said that was their biggest priority in free agency, and they got it done. Very interesting situation in Brooklyn. What's going on there?
4 years, $75 million for Joe Harris. Listen, his career has blossomed with the Nets, and he was essentially out of the league when they brought him in there, and he's turned it into, a massive contract. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. When you have players like that who command the kind of defensive attention those two do, when you have a shooter like Joe Harris out there, it was the kind of player that Sean Marks and new coach Steve Nash did not want to lose, and they keep Joe Harris now at that $75 million deal. And you're starting to see that Nets team. They brought in Bruce Brown from Detroit, and you're seeing their backcourt. Adding some backcourt depth and then solidifying it with Joe Harris.
Meanwhile, Sacramento is convinced that it has found the centerpiece of its franchise moving forward, De'Aaron Fox. He signs a max deal, $163 million, maybe up to $200 million. So what's the thinking there in terms of building around him?
Yeah, he has been for them a high draft pick with the Kings who has developed, blossomed, and they're going to continue to build around him. Tyrese Halliburton came in the draft from Iowa State. They love the idea of playing him there. Buddy Hield in that backcourt.
you.